Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and we got the NATO chief calling Trump daddy,
Yes.
as well as a new Democratic mayor and
Yes. And thank you so much to everybody
a
that's
new Democratic mayor in
New York.
New York. Yeah.
Yes. Not just Democratic, but socialist, communist, Marxist, horrible person. But first of all, thank you to everybody that's coming over from my live show in Spanish. Another live just started because I messed up the settings, but it's this one. This one's the one you have to be at. So thank you.
Okay, you're live with the guy. You're live with Nat and the Guy every night at 9:15 Central. Okay, let's get into it.
You're live for tripping. So this is the new Democrat, now mayor, or at least was a nominee for mayor, Zoran Kwame Mamdani. I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah, but his policies are extremely socialist, bordering on communism. Trump's called them out. A lot of Republicans have as well. We're about to see New York really fall down the shitter swoop. I don't know if that's what you say, but it's not looking good for New York.
You can't say that on YouTube, but so he says these are some of the things he wants to implement now. We will support existing decarceral legislation that will end cash bail, repeal the walking while trans ban, decriminalize disgusting work, legalize the green stuff, permit safe putting stuff in yourself sites, restrict solitary confinement.
Oh, we really can't say what his policies are because you're trying to censor yourself for YouTube. Maybe we'll say them again once we get over to RUMBLE on the second half of the show.
But they can read it. Enact elder parole, whatever that means. Re-enfranchise incarcerated New Yorkers. Decriminalize simple substance possession. Repeal all mandatory minimum sentences. Reduce maximum sentences with retroactive effect. Repeal felony bump-up statutes. Repeal sentencing enhancements. And end cooperation with ICE.
Okay, well.
So that's his platform. And now.
He's won.
So socialist hero Zoran Mamdani owes his victory to rich New Yorkers, not the working class. He has done this whole campaigning on I'm here for the people, the socialist utopia, the socialist dream, but Mamdani's campaign advocated for defunding the police and $65 million in taxpayer funded gender-affirming trans procedures for adults and children. Democratic Socialists, this dude, received overwhelming support from many of New York's wealthiest neighborhoods in Tuesday's primary, while working-class voters earning under $50,000 rejected him by nearly 20 points in favor of ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo, a margin that could increase. Scandal-plagued New York Governor Cuomo called Mamdani on Tuesday to congratulate the Syrian-born immigrant on his victory.
Yeah, it seems like the richer New Yorkers are the ones that supported him. Those are the ones that are going to be fleeing New York City in a couple of years because these policies he's expecting, when he was asked how he's going to pay for them, he's going to tax the rich. So he's going to tax the rich even more than they're already taxed, and they're going to flee, and then there's not going to be a tax base to actually implement these policies except for taxing the poor.
Because that's how any socialist, Marxist, communist utopia always ends up working out.
Yep.
According to election results published by the New York Times, Mamdani won counties with a median income of more than $117,000 by an average of 13 points, while Cuomo won counties with a median income below $62,000 by 13 points.
Okay, let's watch these crazy socialist voters.
We also have him talking about how he plans to pay for his gender-affirming stupidity.
Oh, okay, I didn't know you had this clip. Let's bring it up.
Hold on. And if you don't know what gender-affirming care is, it's essentially chopping off body parts for people that are deluded enough to think they're a different gender or different sex.
And one of the things that we've said, beyond saying it's going to make a sanctuary city for LGBTQIA plus workers, beyond saying that we're going to establish an office of LGBTQIA plus affairs, is also that we're going to provide $65 million in funding for gender-affirming care, the same amount of funding that the federal government threatened to pull out from local providers for that kind of work. And in this moment especially, if we want to fight the Trump administration, we have to do so by fully funding our own services, taxing the wealthiest New Yorkers and corporations here. And one of the things that we've said...
And that person that's standing next to him is one of the biggest trans celebrities. I forget the name, but was in Orange is the New Black and clearly campaigning for stupidity.
Yeah, let's take a look at these left-wing progressive voters actually kind of storming the Capitol today in their own little mini insurrection. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call it an insurrection, but that's what they called it on January 6th, and it's the same thing because it is the Capitol building. They were trying to stop the big, beautiful bill from coming in. So
from Benny Johnson, insurrection, left-wing extremists stormed the Capitol to protest Trump's one big, beautiful bill.
That scene playing out moments ago, demonstrators protesting the big, beautiful bill being arrested on Capitol Hill. The video shows protesters being removed by U.S. Capitol Police. Police have cleared the protesters out of the Capitol building, but we'll keep an eye on this just in case anything else shakes out. That scene playing out.
And yeah, that's socialism for you. They're voting for these things when they come in, and when they don't get them in, they start these storming the capitals to try to stop a vote. Now, it didn't get really that violent, but still, based on their definition of what an insurrection is, I guess that you could call that a left-wing insurrection.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to keep talking or no?
Whatever you want to do.
Zoran Madmani. Well, this doesn't really have to do with the New York dude, but I mean, New York will just have to suffer through that, and apparently DC as well. But in other news, I don't know why they classified it as celebrity here, but Brett Cooper, if you don't know who Brett Cooper is, she's a conservative, what you would call her, content creator, conservative content creator. That kind of got her start first on YouTube, and then Daily Wire quickly picked her up and essentially turned her into a star. And then after some sort of dispute, she's kind of come out to talk about it, but not fully. She left to be on her own, started her own channel, got millions and millions of subscribers that followed her to her own YouTube channel. But now apparently she is joining forces with Fox News.
Yeah, and I would say that this is kind of the new model of major corporations like Fox News picking up independent content creators and putting them as news hosts. That way they get their subscriber base to come over. They can also use their presence on social media and YouTube and things like that to kind of get a new audience, a younger audience. A CNN would be smart to do a similar thing.
Because we've also been talking about, like, on YouTube, or people right now on YouTube, content creators are noticing there's a weird either algorithmic change or the fact that there's a lot of traditional news media, let's just call it, coming into, or being brought in by YouTube or coming into YouTube and being the most recommended things, for example. And there's a lot of people losing a lot of views. Tim Pool lost quite a couple, like, thousands of views for no reason, essentially. And more content creators are noticing this. So it's interesting that Cooper, who was doing pretty well on YouTube, is now deciding to go over to Fox News. But at the same time, she's about to become a new mom. So the, set schedule and knowing where to go and having other people do the editing, some of the research, etc., having way more help is probably also part of her decision. But it's interesting that she's moving over there while the new traditional news media is moving into the YouTube space and apparently annoying all the actual content creators.
Yeah, I don't know. They've kind of already moved over there, and I don't necessarily think it's that. A lot of these bigger creators are going over to Rumble, and I think YouTube may be punishing them for really. Rumble is setting up their dominating afternoon live streaming. One show is rolling into the next, They got exclusive contracts for these big creators. That's why I think the big creators are kind of being throttled by YouTube right now, but smaller creators are as well. Not to the extent that these very large creators are, though. Okay, let's kind of go into this a little bit.
So this is Brett Cooper, and apparently, I believe today she had her big announcement.
And if you think she looks like the female Ben Shapiro, it's because she does. Everybody used to make jokes about it.
You think she does? I don't think she does.
Everybody does. It's all over. There's so many memes about it.
But she was supposed
You just love this girl. That's why you're not willing to say
her,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
But apparently today she was supposed to go on the Will Kane show to announce, but had some car issues. Not sure what that means, but let's just watch her announcement.
Hello, everyone. I am reporting live from a Buc-ee's in the middle of Texas. I'm so sorry that I was not able to join Will on the show live today. I was so excited to kick off this new partnership with Fox in this official way, but a series of unfortunate events left my husband and I on the side of the road in Texas on the freeway as we were trying to get between Austin and Dallas for the tour that I'm currently on. So I was not able to make it in time, but I wanted to send in this video just to say say hi and to thank you all for the congratulations and the excitement. I am so excited to join Fox as a contributor. I can't wait to be on their shows even more regularly. I think it'll be so much fun, and I will see you guys on Fox tomorrow. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see pickups from the left. They're going to start getting a lot of these leftist content creators such as Destiny and other people like Pacman, things like this.
David Pacman?
Yeah, David Pacman. Well, Destiny, if he stopped the radicalist rhetoric, he would actually be pretty good as a commentator, I think. So we'll see if they do pick him up.
But he also has, let's just call it substance issues, doesn't he?
Yeah,
so he's not very reliable.
He does have kids as well, though, so he is somewhat
There's
reliable.
a lot of people that have kids that have substance issues.
But he does stream like a lot on a regular basis, so he does know how to keep a schedule. He knows he's good. He's good at talking points. For a leftist, he is the smartest leftist they got, and the smartest progressive. So he can really stand toe to toe with most right wingers in a debate, which is very rare on the left.
So with Brett, a lot of people said that in this video, it kind of looked like she had been crying. That she looked kind of off. I didn't see it, but then again, I mean, if you have this important thing you have to get to, you're pretty pregnant by then, and the hormones are all over the place, and then your car breaks down and you can't make it, I'd probably be crying too.
Yeah, this is kind of something you would do. I mean, you like to leave things to the last minute and barely make it between. If I have an appointment the other day, on Monday we had an appointment, I was like, when are we going to leave?
We left 2 hours early.
Because of me.
Were there
you
2
wanted to leave
early.
at 1:30. I said, no, we're leaving at 12. We're going to be there 2 hours early. Anything goes wrong, well, we're going to be able to get another taxi, do something. So we got there. And with plenty of time to spare, thank goodness, because we had to do other errands right before, and there were long lines because it's Mexico.
So I don't know if it's a girl thing or a fact that I'm Mexican thing. But yes, I'm not good at timekeeping, but it keeps it interesting.
Yeah. I do like Brett Cooper. This is a big pickup. This is going to start being the model for news networks if they want to revive themselves. They're going to have access and promotion through her on her online platform. I'm guessing they're going to let her keep that platform because it only benefits them. They may have restrictions on some things she could say. I don't know. But
she's pretty...
She's pretty,
She's good at it.
She's pretty milquetoast.
No, and she's good at not saying, like, knowing what words she can and can't say.
Yeah.
Unlike you. But yeah, so, I mean, best of luck to Brett Cooper. But it also does, again, I'll bring up the interesting conversation you didn't want to have. The fact that YouTube is bringing in all of this traditional media, but now apparently YouTube people are going over to the traditional media. So maybe it's a plan for Fox to have her mostly on YouTube because that's her space.
Yeah, it could be.
So we might see more and more that, but then what happens to the content creators that don't go over to traditional media?
This is an opportunity if Rumble can fix their platform for people to go over there. If X wants to kind of change their platform to help creators monetize and things like this, there is a hole right now. A lot of creators are complaining, things like this. These other platforms have an opportunity to come in, even Twitch. So. Okay, let's continue.
Do you have any comments? Because I think my thing is broken.
Oh, okay. Let me check real quick. No comments.
Okay. So from the UK being crazy and more confirmation of it from Wide Awake Media. Do you want me to read it all or no?
Yeah, this is our environmental section. So I usually bring a couple of environmental stories, things like this. Particularly today, this was the only story that kind of came up or anything that really piqued my interest. So let's read about it.
Do you want me to read it or just play it?
Just read the opening and then we'll play it.
So from Wide Awake Media, the UK government is genuinely exploring ways to dim the sun that we're supposed to rely on for heat, our light, and so-called green energy future.
And I talk about this a lot. This is this experimental project where they're trying to block out the sun in the UK. It's already been approved with Bill Gates' company. We have another story about Bill Gates and his investments and his globalist companies later on. But this guy explains it really well. I just want to keep this story kind of in the news cycle, or at least in our cycle, so we don't forget about it, because this is a really dramatic story. At least to me, that's what it seems like. I was shocked the first time I seen this story. This is probably the fourth or fifth time we've reported on it now.
So this is Bruce Unfiltered.
Can you imagine pitching this in a pub? Right, lads, We're going to power the entire country on solar panels, and then we're going to block out the sun. You'd be laughed out of the door and branded a conspiracy nut before your pint even hits the bar. But guess what? That's exactly what's happening. Not in a cartoon, not in a sci-fi novel, but right here in Britain, funded by your taxes. You see, the UK government, through a little-known agency called AREA, it's genuinely exploring ways to dim the sun. Yes, the sun that we're supposed to rely on.
And they already don't have enough sun, so the fact that they want to dim out the sun is crazy. And how are they going to propose that this isn't going to affect other countries? If they're going to say, well, climate change is the thing that's going to kill us all, that we should just block out the sun on behalf of the world, that would be even more crazy.
On for heat, our light, and so-called green energy future. Well, they're now looking at shooting particles into the sky, launching mirrors into space, and even thickening Arctic ice with drones. Sounds a little bit like a Mr. Burns plot from The Simpsons, doesn't it? And it practically is. Only difference is Burns was fiction. This is public policy. And the idea is to cause global cooling to offset climate change by reflecting sunlight away from Earth. Sounds clever in a lab, sounds insane in the real world.
Exactly.
Because let's be absolutely clear about this. We don't know what happens if we mess with the sun. We don't know how it will affect ecosystems, crop cycles, rainfall, or global temperatures. But they want to experiment anyway because apparently decarbonisation isn't enough anymore. We need emergency sky surgery. And if you dare to question it again, the net zero, we're labelled a denier, a crank, or worse, anti-science. Here's the thing, though. Over 500 scientists, yes, actual climate scientists, signed an open letter begging governments to halt solar geoengineering research. Why? Because it's being used as a get-out-of-jail-free card by lobbyists, billionaires, and governments who don't want to change the system. Because they'd rather control the thermostat than address the actual cause. Honestly, when are people going to stop pretending this is about the planet? This is
good.
And at the same time, I mean, he's right. A lot of this net zero green energy policies are, in the end, once you actually go through the back door and see where all that money's heading and who's benefiting from it, it's not the planet, it's the people that are implementing all of these stupid things.
Yeah, and Canada says they're warming up at 2 to 3 times the rate as the rest of the world, which is just malarkey. The way they report on things is there's just so much propaganda in Canada right now. They had the coldest May on record. So the fact that they're saying that their global warming's affecting them disproportionately, and that's why they have to implement this carbon taxes and everybody has to suffer in Canada is crazy.
And I did like the fact that he said emergency sky surgery is essentially what they're doing. But at the same time, what was I going to say? I forgot.
Well, mirrors and...
Oh, at the same time, they never, I mean, did the UK people, did the British people vote for this? No. This was just a government initiative that's an experiment because they have never done it before. And they decided to test out this experiment to then go do it in other countries in the UK, which already has no sun.
Well, if we're actually in a phase of cooling, like a lot of global scientists or climate scientists are now coming out and saying openly, where before they were kind of being silenced, they need, or the governments that went after, global warming for the last 40 years now need some excuse to say, oh, we're the reason that the planet's cooling now. We're doing good. We've accomplished something. And that's why they're trying to rush this. The world may naturally be in a cooling cycle. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But they would never admit that because it's not convenient.
They would admit it if they do some geoengineering and then take credit for it.
Yes, anything that will make them money, they'll admit to.
Okay, do you want to go into Canada now, or?
So Rafa says hello, Rafa, and also says congratulations for reaching 200 subscribers on this channel. So thank you.
Oh,
thank you to everybody that the last 2 that subscribed. Thank you so much, and everybody else, thank you for being here and supporting us. And Rafa also says, by the way, you're still missing 10 to reach 9,000 in the Spanish one. I know.
Oh, wow, we did reach 200. Thanks for letting us know.
Yes,
that's awesome.
And that's kind of why we did the Marco story in the Spanish one. For some reason, be it bots, be it, people just interested in that, or the algorithm pushing it all the way to the top, it always helps us.
Yeah, this channel should start growing, I would say, within the next maybe 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to start clipping clips. I have my morning show clippable now. I'm to the point where hopefully I'm good enough. And I'm going to start rearranging maybe next week the way we present stories on this channel so we can clip these ones as well. So, okay, let's go into NATO, not Canada, actually.
So apparently Zelenskyy does own a suit because he showed up at NATO
And that's
wearing
not
one.
Zelenskyy, and
No.
that's not his suit. That's like a...
That would actually look. It kind of does
That's a
look.
space demon.
It looks. It looks like it could be because it kind of looks like that symbol they use.
Well, it looks like the guy that used to run
Pro-Ukraine people.
the World Economic Forum. What's his name? He'd wear those crazy villain
yes.
suits.
Why can't I think of his name?
He's already outside of the media, retired. Now we forgot his name. I used to talk... Oh, Klaus Schwab.
Klaus Schwab.
Yeah.
He does look like Klaus Schwab, but the diversity version.
Okay, let's go into Zelenskyy. He actually put the suit on for the first time. If you remember last time he met Trump, Trump called him out in front of the media and made him look like a fool. He's at the NATO summit. He's not even part of NATO. What he's doing there, I don't know. But
Begging.
Yeah, begging. But at least he wore a suit and he knows he may see Trump. So...
Because Trump told him it was disrespectful to wear fatigues in the White House or when meeting diplomats and politicians. And
Well,
that
people
he
have been
shouldn't be
calling
dressed
him
like
out
that.
for over 3 years now, and I've been watching him calling him out, and he just refuses to change. So
Yes, because he's one of the people.
he's an actor, and he likes to dress up for his part.
It's not even a suit.
It's an upgrade.
Close enough.
Good evening.
He just put on a blazer.
Well, and I talked about this on my morning show a little bit, and I did say he's walking a thin line. He can't show up in a $10,000 GQ suit because...
Which they also tried at the Vanity Fair cover.
Yeah,
but
he's asking for money and things like this, and there's a lot of corruption swirling around Ukraine, so he can't look overly presentable like it costs a lot of money, yet he should not be in military fatigues. So this is a good compromise. I liked it, even though I'm not a big fan of Zelenskyy or the Ukraine war. Good for him for actually listening to Trump and being presentable to the world.
Well, now more and more he has to walk around with a tail between his legs. So.
Well, he's always like, there's just so many scandals of different illicit substance uses and things like this on the train. Wasn't the first time. On TV, things on his nose constantly. So how this guy's still there, I don't know, but he is. I thought we'd cover it.
Wearing
And
a blazer.
But there is other NATO news here.
Yes.
And this
So-
was the big story of the day.
Yeah.
We told some friends and their jaws dropped. But yeah, it's been all over every outlet as well. Reporters are asking questions at the news conferences, not just to Trump, but to Marco Rubio, to the guy that actually said it. This was a big blunder.
Yes, apparently NATO Secretary General calls Trump daddy. Rutte piled praise on Trump as above his use of the term. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte called President Donald Trump daddy on Wednesday, reacting to the president's recent use of expletives when he accused Iran and Israel of violating ceasefire agreement, which we talked about yesterday when Trump said the F word. Early Wednesday morning, during a bilateral meeting between Trump and Rutte during the NATO summit in The Hague, Netherlands, Trump likened the countries of Israel and Iran to two kids in a schoolyard that had a big fight. I believe we do have the video of when he actually calls him, well,
And it's kind of
uses
hard,
daddy around Trump.
it's kind of hard to hear it. He slips it in, so
Don't say that.
well, he does.
I know, but it sounds weird.
Play the video.
Let's watch Mark Rutte slipping it in.
I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then daddy has to sometimes do strong language.
Yeah.
And there it was. He said, "Daddy's sometimes got to use strong language." The first time I watched it, I actually didn't hear it because he kind of mumbled it, but then I had to play it back. So it is confirmed that is what he said. He confirmed
he's
it.
laughing a lot. He's really happy with what he said.
Oh yeah,
But then-
he's trying to suck up to Trump here, and that's what's going on. A lot of these countries are saying they're going to put 5% forward for their military budget. They've now looked into what the UK's committed. They're saying 5%, but they fudge the numbers all around, and they're counting infrastructure projects within the UK as part of this commitment to increasing their military budget.
And then Spain said no. And Trump said, yeah, you will.
Yeah.
If you want to stay and you don't want more sanctions or more economic pressure, you will.
If they all don't pony up for the 5%, then the U.S. is going to pull out of NATO and leave them high and dry. overall, that would be the good thing because I don't think there is really a credible threat to Europe right now. They're trying to claim Russia, but that's against Ukraine, not the EU, not NATO. That being said, it would be a 5 to 10 year project for the EU to have their own manufacturing for the military.
And then, trying to save face, in my opinion, Mark Rutte actually tried to clarify Trump comments. I didn't call him daddy. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte sought to clarify an eyebrow-raising comment he made during a bilateral news conference with President Trump. He said the daddy thing, I didn't call him daddy. Rutte told reporters later in the day.
We just heard it, and he did.
Yes.
And I've played it enough times today.
What I said is that sometimes in Europe, I hear sometimes countries saying, hey, Mark, will the U.S. stay with us? And I say that sounds a little bit like a small child asking his daddy, hey, are you still staying with your family? So in that sense, I use daddy, not that I was calling President Trump daddy.
Yeah, but you didn't say all that pre-context. You just came out and said daddy, and now you're saying, in my head, I had a pre-context. Well, the world doesn't know your pre-context, and they just heard daddy, 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 daddy Trump.
Yeah, and we're still hearing Daddy Trump because he was then asked about it at the press pool, and Marco Rubio could not contain. He's always very serious, very, but he broke character.
Yeah, we asked a liberal friend about this. They didn't know, and they said, "What? What happened?"
Why? Who called
they
him
were
daddy?
shocked.
But Marco Rubio found it very funny. We'll see that now.
It's from Sky News. Mark Rutte, the
Marco Rubio's the gentleman
Yeah.
in the back, so watch the
This
gentleman in the back's face.
NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No?
Do you
He did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that, but do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their own without...
I think they need help a little bit at the beginning. And
It's from Sky
He
News.
couldn't stop laughing.
No.
And she was just trying to use that to actually ask him about how he sees other countries, but it was funny. I mean, his face was
Well,
funny.
they just wanted to slip in a question with that this gentleman did call him daddy because they want the headline. So
Yeah.
her question was non-importance.
No.
They needed to have the headline of the NATO leader calling him daddy so they can put it in tomorrow's papers, because this thing is catching fire, not just in independent media, mainstream media. Articles are already popping up like an hour after this.
But yeah, Marco, always serious, very angry. Marco broke character. And it's nice to see humanity sometimes come through. But at the same time, what timeline are we living in? Like, that's what I
Yeah.
keep asking. The timeline where daddy drops the F-bomb. That I was going to say Trump drops the F-bomb and then is called daddy. But he was very happy. I mean, he did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy.
He does like when his ego is stroked,
Of
and
course.
this was like a mishap where they overly stroked his ego, and he was very nice about it. He's like, well, they need help in the beginning. We can help them out. So,
Yes.
okay, let's go into the
Canada.
next story here.
Less
And-
happy thoughts, but
Okay, this is our Canadian section right here. And
now
the-
we have sections apparently.
Well, the reason I'm saying it is because I have a lot of Canadian stories, and I did this yesterday as well, but a lot of Canadian news has been popping up. But Canada is really the tip of the spear reflection of all these other Western countries, except for the United States. So it's a reflection of what's going on in Europe, in Australia, and other progressive countries around the world. Now, the U.S. has kind of diverged from this. Under Biden, it was a reflection. Canada was a good reflection as well. But if you watch Canada, you get to see these other these policies emerge first and then implemented all around the world. Okay, let's go into the first one.
And also, we used to live in Vancouver, Canada. And even though I'm Mexican, I lived there for 13 years, so I know it unfortunately, well. From Mark Nixon.
Oh, God. This was supposed to be funny, but the more I watched it, the less funny it got.
So Mark Nixon says, good news, Toronto now offers public transportation and public showers all for one fare. Bad news, you're going to want to bring flip-flops, a hazmat suit, and your therapist.
And this is
But at least it's cleaner than City Hall.
This is the largest city in Canada. It's Toronto, and it's in Ontario, which is a province. They have the most amount of immigration. So this is becoming commonplace in Toronto. And it's why is this becoming commonplace? This isn't mental illness. This is what people do in some other countries, especially third world countries. So,
and sorry about the visuals. Oh.
Nothing beats a jet suit.
We can't have the music playing, but you get this.
And this is on a train. So this is like be the subway or the SkyTrain, yeah. And these are actually nice trains. So the fact that you got this going on is crazy.
Yes. It's gross.
But this goes on in places like India and stuff like that. But when you come to another country, you're expected to kind of maybe adopt their standards, especially in a public setting. So,
well, at one point, I don't remember what country it was, but there was a country that had to tell people to stop dropping trow and dropping other stuff on the sidewalk because that's just how it used to be done. But in
Vancouver,
there's also a lot of mental illness.
Well, no, I was going to say in Vancouver, they're actually their city workers are now paid to pick up human feces and things like this because people from other countries and people that have mental illness are just going all over the sidewalk, and it's bad for business and business owners.
Yep, there's a whole poo patrol.
We talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yes, we talked about the poo patrol. But yes, gross. I mean, I used to do my makeup on the way to work because I'm always late, and I used to have to...
Makeup's a different story. Shirt off, soap suds in your armpits and on your belly. Like, this is crazy.
The belly. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, breaking from Wiretap Media Canada. City of Calgary, which is in Alberta, implements new bylaw banning non-lethal weapons like airsoft, pew-pews, bear spray, pepper spray, and baseball bats. But don't worry, Khalistanis can still wield their swords in the streets because there's a specific section of Khalistanis that actually do stuff with swords, and they are allowed to carry them because they have a religious permit.
Yeah, not necessarily just swords. Sikhs are also allowed to carry large knives that are about this big. Can you show me? Large knives that are about this to this big. They're fairly huge. I mean, they're considered illegal weapons for anybody else to carry other than a Sikh. Sikhs carry these things in public, and they do intimidate people with these things all the time. They're open carry, so they're seen. And man, the amount of Sikhs with knives is crazy in Canada, and nobody else is allowed to have open carry knives like that in Canada either.
Or open carry anything.
It should be the same law across the board. Now, I'd rather have it so everybody can kind of open carry weapons rather than taking airsoft guns away from Calgarians, people from Calgary.
Calgarians? I don't know.
Calgarians.
Calgary people.
That being said, they're trying to start banning legal firearms and things like that in Canada. It's getting crazy. Let's see the news report here.
Good afternoon. Safety concerns prompting the city and police to take action today. The city amending a bylaw focused on weapons and bear spray, while Calgary police are warning about an increase in crimes being committed with air guns. Kevin Fleming.
This is in Calgary. Alberta is currently being flooded with immigrants. A lot of these immigrants are allowed to carry knives. Only the immigrants are allowed to carry knives under religious exemptions. The reason Alberta has this huge influx compared to the rest of Canada, they're preparing for the separation vote. The government's main strategy is to flood Alberta with immigrants so then they can vote in the separation election to keep Alberta part of Canada.
Mm-hmm. Joins us with more. And Kevin, complaint calls are rising and police are concerned.
That's right, Camilla. In 2024, police say that 817 of those air guns have been seized. And in the first 5 months of this year, 333 of those same air guns have been seized. Now, Calgary Police Service says it's getting at least one call a day regarding these realistic-looking guns.
These are BB guns and paintball guns, and
They sell them at Canadian Tire.
Yeah, and there's Canada has one of the lowest gun crime rates in the world, yet it has some of the highest ownership per capita. That being said, all the gun crime that's committed in Canada is with illegal weapons coming from the United States, yet the government does almost nothing to try to confiscate illegal weapons. But these once legal airsoft guns, I think when I was reading through stories today about this, I think they're trying to manipulate statistics. Canadian government is the master of manipulating statistics. So under Canadian law, an airsoft gun or a BB gun or a paintball gun would be considered a weapon and a gun. So then they would be, if they confiscate hundreds or thousands of these BB guns, they can say, oh, we've gotten all these illegal weapons off of the street.
Yeah, and at the same time in Canada, you don't have the right to self-defense. You can also go to jail if you do something to the person attacking you.
In your own house.
If you create worse damage to them than they were doing to you, that's not considered self-defense.
Has had as many as 8 in one day, and every time the calls come in, officers have to respond with caution, and it typically involves multiple units to ensure public safety, and those officers are using real guns. Police say most people don't know, but it is illegal to fire air guns within the city limits, and it's asking for help from parents to let their children know the dangers of carrying one of these guns to school or to show their friends.
And really, what we're asking for here is to educate, but we need the support of community members and parents and supervisors.
And it says, Diverse Sergeant Sarah Rowe encourages you to rat out your neighbors so they can be educated or fined up to $250.
Yeah, and as they're attempting to de-arm the Canadian public because they don't like the liberal gun laws that were previously in Canada, they've been trying to confiscate guns over the past 10 years dramatically. Trudeau made hundreds of weapons illegal that were previously legal in Canada, yet they were unable to confiscate them because no police force was actually willing to do it. What they're attempting to do right now is keep those guns on the illegal list, and they're dramatically going to increase the funding for the police and the military to arm and weaponize them against the public to take the public's once legal weapons away.
And in Canada, a lot of people have these rifles, guns, etc., because there's a big hunting culture. Because the back doors is basically right outside your door. So
it's not just a hunting culture. I used to work in the north, and I used to live in the north for quite a while for my jobs and things like this. And bears, moose, there are all kinds of things that you absolutely have to have a sidearm for. If you're not going to carry a full rifle, you need a minimum a handgun, and a handgun very often won't protect you against a bear or a moose. A moose in heat is very dangerous. That's true.
I know, but it sounds funny.
Well, people think when you say moose, oh, they're friendly and they're nice.
No, they're not friendly.
They're not. Yeah.
I used to go camping in Maine when I was younger.
They're more dangerous than
they're
bears.
They're not nice. Yeah.
Okay.
But Moose in Heat sounds like a rock band name. Maybe it should be a Moose in Heat. Walker says Canada should just abolish the police. That would make human rights violations non-existent. Clearly, normal people would be in bad shape. But when did that matter to human rights, anyways?
Yeah, there was another story I didn't put in here today, but they're trying to codify into law that all jobs across Canada will hire immigrants through a quota system of a minimum of 25%.
They already do that.
They do much more than that, but they want to codify it into law that every business has to have at least 25%. Okay. If it passes, then I'll pick up the story and we'll talk about it more in depth. Right now, it's just in its first phase.
Diversity is their strength. And meanwhile, people's home insurances are going up by 34%. Contrarian says, this is insane, jacking up prices like crazy in the name of climate. My house insurance just increased from $600 a month to $17,500 to $1750 to $2357.
Okay, so it went from $1,600 to $1750 to
no,
almost
from $600.
Yeah, I just said it went from $600 to it went from $600 to $1750 to almost $2,500 a month. So is that clear?
Yes. He says, I live in a 200 square foot house on a 25-foot wide lot.
Okay, I put this in here because this is happening in all Western countries, and this is how they're coming after home ownership and things like this. They're increasing strata fees, increasing taxes, increasing everything. So it's like you're a permanent renter even after you've paid off your home because of all the different types of taxes they're going to hit you with.
Yeah. The other day, Rafa was asking us about taxes. This is one way.
Yeah. And car insurance is extremely high. It's a monopoly in Canada where the Canadian government is the only insurer within Canada.
Says, I've never had a claim in my life. You try to live within your means, and every time you turn around, you're being hit with a massive cost of living increase. Yeah.
And this is their water bill, correct?
No. This is their home insurance.
Oh, home insurance. Yeah. So yeah, the next one is going to be for water bills and utilities, I believe. So if you add this $2,500, this is insane with every other tax Canada has. And this is how we get to a 70% tax rate.
Yeah. And from Lazy Canadian Investor says, who pays $452 per month for utilities? So utilities are water, not gas, but electricity, internet, etc.
Yeah.
What utilities are we talking about here? And the person says, I couldn't afford all my groceries today for the first time in my 29 years of life. The day has come. At the cash register, I had to return items to the cash in order for it to be under a certain limit. 2 others waiting in line, and she couldn't avoid it.
One moment. This is becoming a common story in Canada. Our utilities bills were close to that, but they're getting even higher now. And that being said, it's food costs that are extremely high now in Canada. So the reason this is a common story, it's not just the utility cost, but when they go to the register, the food cost is extremely high. I used to work 4 jobs, and I've ran into this situation myself in Canada. And it's not like I wasn't working. It's not like there wasn't 2 people living in the household, and I would still be broke at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Says, dreadful. I have no words to express the embarrassment and shame I felt for not being able to afford some effing bell peppers and more. Yeah, I silent cried on my way home and then ugly cried once I got home. I thought I was okay. Then boom, $452 in utilities for 1 effing month. Can't afford anything after paying my water bill. And I don't remember ever struggling this much like right now to make ends meet as a single person.
And this is a sad situation. This is exactly what the Canadian government wants. This is not the end, but this is only the beginning. They're going to keep going over the next 10 years, and they want to be the people that want to bring a solution. So they're manufacturing these products or these problems through extremely high prices like utilities, like groceries, things like this. And then they want to step in with the solution, which is digital currency, a UBI, and a digital ID. You have to have the digital ID if you want the universal basic income, which is going to be programmed so you can use it on food and exclusive items. Because they want to be, they're trying to take over the masculine role in society, or the role the husband would normally play, but they're manufacturing these problems in order to manufacture the solutions.
And for everybody. But Walker disagrees and says, I've seen moose cartoons many times and they're the good guys. In cartoons they are. See one face to face and you might change your mind. They're scary. They're huge. They're bigger than buses.
Sometimes they can be not. It's mainly like I said, when mooses are in heat, they get extremely violent, or when they have their baby moose around, and it's a mother moose.
Mooses?
They're not mice.
It's not mooses. It's moose. Moose. The plural of moose is moose.
Moose-eye.
So from anti-taxer, as you were saying, 10 years from now, Mark Carney just said in 10 years, Canadians are going to have to make sacrifice. In 10 years, they're making them now. We came all the way to Mexico.
Yeah, but he's admitting this now. Yeah. And when Justin Trudeau was in office, he would be, well, we're going to balance the budget in 5 years. He would just tell lies that would never actually face the truth that there's hardships coming really quick in Canada. The fact that he's saying 10 years, be forewarned, this isn't 10 years. This was within the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Are going to have to make sacrifices in order to meet defense spending thresholds to face new threats. What new threats? What sacrifices? This is insanity. Boomers sold us out. Most of them will be gone when we need to make tough decisions about who is sacrificing what and how. And everybody's already doing those anyways. They're the only generation who were never required to make sacrifices.
Yeah, and he's going to spend all this money on this military budget, and he's saying that's why they're going to face hard times. Canada doesn't have an enemy. Now,
I mean,
if they would have just made small investments in the military over time, they wouldn't be required to invest billions of dollars now.
The devil himself.
Carney, Mackenzie Gray with Global News. Previously, you've spoken about the idea that Canadians will need to make sacrifices to pay for defense spending. Can you outline what sacrifices you're expecting Canadians to make?
Well, I think right now we're in the the people who've been making sacrifices have been the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces because they have not been paid to reflect what we are asking them to do. They haven't been operating with the
Put her down.
She's barking. She won't stop barking.
And it's not just the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces that have had to make sacrifices. It is every Canadian.
right equipment in many cases.
Put it down.
Many cases their equipment hasn't been working. So the first sacrifices have been there, and we're making up for that and level setting that. And that's an important part of just what we're doing this year in terms of the increase in defense. The second thing I'd say is that the way we're looking at this, and you'll hear more about this in the coming months, that the investments we're making in defense and security, broader security, given the new threats that Canada faces.
We've had the court jester. Let's get back to the stories.
I think those...
I've kept playing it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I've been listening to it and replying.
We're not at a trade-off. We're not at sacrifices in order to do those. These will be net additive. In other words, more of this will happen in Canada. More of it will help build our economy at the same time as it improves our...
He's talking about this military manufacturing happening within Canada. They just had BC ferries, which are, it's a kind of a mega project. They ordered 4 ferries rather than manufacture them in Canada. They ordered them from China. And he keeps talking about manufacturing in Canada. They just don't have the infrastructure to manufacture anymore because of climate regulations and things like this and the amount of taxes for companies in Canada. They're moving to the United States, or it's cheaper just to buy them off companies in China.
Yeah, there's a dog yelling outside, so she's going crazy. Okay, back to
defense.
Annoying man.
And we'll get the benefits. The question is, as we move towards later in this decade, and depending on how the threat environment evolves globally, if we are moving to the higher and higher levels of defense spending because that's necessary, then we will have to make considerations about what less the federal government can do in certain cases and how we're going to pay for it.
So he's talking about cutting social services and things like this. And this is the big thing about a UBI or about digital currencies and things like this. If they start giving the entire population UBI, how are they going to pay for that UBI? In the beginning, everybody's going to be all for it, and nobody's going to have to really work because everything's kind of supplied for them. Anything you do work for is just extra money. Supposedly, that's how it's supposed to work. What happens after about 5 years? They pull the rug out from under everybody, and they say, in order for us to supply this UBI, you need to come to these manufacturing companies and work for the government. And then that's how they have basically slave labor in Canada. Or at least that's how I see it going down. Okay, let's go into the next story here.
So we're heading over to RUMBLE. Sorry about the puppy. Everybody's going crazy outside.
Yeah, all the dogs are just barking right now.
Every single dog in Mexico City is going crazy. Hopefully nothing bad happens.
Hopefully there's no earthquake.
That's what I was thinking. But yes, thank you for being here. We're going over to RUMBLE to finish the stories up that we can't talk about on YouTube still. So we'll see you over there now.
Okay, and look at that. We got 69 subscribers on Rumble now. So thank you for the new subscriber. We're trying to get to 70 and eventually 100. Once we're at 100, we can get